Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Porch Talk Live. Come on up on the porch. We're glad you're with us tonight. Unscheduled, but no less important. Hey, Amy. Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric the Undertaker, along with my wife, Allison, sitting across from me. Hello, honey.
Hello.
Come on up, take a seat, let the daylight wane. Got stories in
Amy.
the air and some dreams to gain. The coffee's warm, the swing's in tune. We'll laugh a little loud underneath the silver moon. Welcome to the porch.
Oh, Drea. Awesome. We're glad you're here. Good evening, everyone. Oh, Susie's on YouTube as well. Good evening, everyone. Unscheduled pop-up live on the porch. And it's pouring rain. It is pouring rain. I think more than the other night, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and we've got a little bit of wind, so you're going to hear that. Here comes Amy with the lightning bolts because we're honoring the rain. I can even see the light is like blowing in the wind. So
It
I
might
don't know,
topple.
I don't know how long we're going to last, but we're going for it. And we are going live on YouTube tonight as well at the same time. So if you have not followed us on YouTube yet, please do so. Eric the Undertaker on YouTube as well. We have some people that are just on YouTube. We love our home on TikTok, but we want to be able to accommodate other people as well. So for the first time tonight, we're trying, which is one of the reasons we came on the porch tonight, because we're wanting to try out the YouTube live as well. So, okay, hey, you go ahead and drop in the comments, everybody. Hey, Erica, welcome tonight. Drop in the comments where you're calling or where you're checking in from. Roll call on the porch, I like to call it. And we'll get right to the questions in just a little bit. Yes, we have. Those heart me's are incredibly important. Thanks so much for dropping those in, making you part of our fan club. Yes, we are supposed to get rain in Arizona as well, Susie says on YouTube. Absolutely. I think it's going to be all throughout our area. Hi from Utah, upstate New York, Tennessee. Let's see. Thanks so much for the heart me's. As you come in, hop on the porch, drop the heart me's, tap on the screen, letting everybody know that we are live. And, well, we have 8 people on YouTube.
That's amazing.
That surprises me. Yes. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Eric the Undertaker. I'm a licensed mortician. And along with my wife, we do several lives a week where we come on, talk about death. We talk about grief, your grief journey, or just anything that you've ever wanted to ask a mortician. So welcome tonight, and we'll get right into the questions as soon as you're ready, dear.
Sure. The first question of the night I have ready to go. I plan on being cremated. What happens to my knee replacements?
Yeah, great question. So anything metal that's in the body, mostly from orthopedic, devices or orthopedic surgeries, is going to be removed after the cremation. So you're going to be cremated with that in, and then afterwards it'll easily be removed. Smaller pins or screws or anything like that, we'll use a magnet to go over the cremated remains after to pull out. Only thing that we take out prior to cremation is pacemakers, defibrillators, anything that has a battery, lithium battery in it, because that can actually explode during the cremation process and do some damage to the crematory.
Rachel's wondering if you can please keep her and her mom in mind. She had to put her on a hospice now.
Rachel, I'm so sorry. That's all part of the journey sometimes, and I know it's not an easy thing to hear, diagnosis to hear, or decision for the family to make. But let me tell you, you're going to get some incredible support. Your mom's going to get some wonderful care and support, and the entire family is going to get some amazing support and guidance through the rest of the journey. So we're here for you. Anything that we can do for you, any questions you have, please don't hesitate. All right, let's see. All right, well, anyway, back to our Porchketeers on TikTok. So
Okay, Kay Sony. I do have a question. I had to identify my uncle's body and his eyes were black. Why?
Well, the only thing I can think of, Case Sunny, is that possibly that there had been a time period between when he passed away and when he was found. And so there was post-mortem lividity or change. He may have also died face down, which would have caused gravity to post-mortem staining as the blood settled as well. The eyelids are very thin membrane, so sometimes they will discolor before, many of the other parts of the body. But I'm so sorry for your loss. So thanks, everyone, for coming in tonight. We're just getting started by doing that. If you can go ahead and tap on the screen as you come up on the porch, that's going to help notify everyone else that's not already on the porch that we are live and ready for you tonight, answering any questions we can regarding death, dying, your own grief process or journey, or anything you've ever wanted to ask a mortician. So,
Well, how do I roll over from a 401k to a Roth IRA?
well, maybe I have people that I can refer you over to that can probably answer that better to me, but you got me there. Not the best person probably to answer
maybe not
that question.
anything.
Not anything mortuary related, right?
There we go.
And from Arlington, Texas, we have Cindy checking in on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Eric the Undertaker, licensed mortician, here to answer any questions you might have regarding death, dying, or just your own grief journey. Anything you've ever wanted to ask a mortician.
Kayla wants to know, can family help with dressing if they want?
Yeah, Kayla, absolutely. We allow it, and in fact, we'll encourage it. And the reason I encourage it is because I think that anything the family is willing to do, and if it's appropriate for their grief journey, it's only going to help them. The more active they are in the process as far as memorialization, the funeral, whether it's coming in to help dress or maybe helping do hair, maybe even doing nails or something like that, doing the obituary, helping with slideshows, that's all going to be beneficial for them as they start their grief journey. So.
Cecilia, my daughter said she was going to have me cremated and turned into diamonds. Who does that?
Yeah, there is a company. There's actually a couple of companies now that make synthetic stone out of cremated remains. Cremated remains are carbon-based because it's the result of skeletal remains being processed down. And so they are compressed just like any other synthetic process of making stones, diamonds, sapphires, rubies, anything like that. And they're absolutely beautiful. So it takes about 1.5 to 2 cups worth of cremated remains to make, one decent size stone. Mimi, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for dropping in the Daily Heart Me. We appreciate that. We've got a goal tonight of lightning bolts in honor of the rain. And we've got another system coming through tonight. I'm going to get plenty of rain. I think we've gotten up to 2 inches already, which is great for us. So.
B-Mom wants to know, Dad died 2 weeks ago today. Would they have left his pacemaker in for burial?
Burial, absolutely, they would have. Pacemaker will not be removed for burial. So they will leave it inside him. Sometimes they'll shut it off. There's a magnetic device that will shut it off, even at the hospital sometimes. Bernardo's checking in on YouTube. Thanks so much. Cupid, hello. And Rudy, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, friend. Welcome to the porch tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Why are pupils dilated?
That's just, part of the relaxing of every part of the body when it dies. Anything that, of course, the pupils dilate, when naturally when we're alive, when the environment's darker, so we can see better. And of course, that's just one thing that completely relaxes when we die, and so the pupils dilate as if they were going into the dark. But really, that's not what it is, because the dark is on the inside, not the outside in that situation.
What's the longest someone can be preserved?
Steve, great question. So the longest that someone can be preserved is really depending on the results of the embalming process. If we know that we're going to have to care for someone that's going to, have to be with us for a while, then we will adjust the embalming procedure, meaning we will mix the fluid differently. We'll create a higher index, higher strength fluid, maybe use more fluid than we normally would to kind of oversaturate the tissues. Longest we've ever cared for somebody, which wasn't that long ago, I guess it's approaching 2 years now, was 9 months. We had to care for a lady for 9 months before shipping her back home internationally, and for various reasons. And she looked great. She was beautiful. The family was still able to have an open casket and service there once she arrived. So
Renee asks, when my mom passed, we saw a smoke or cloud escape her mouth and go up. What would that be?
yeah, that's amazing, Renee. And I mean, personally, I think that very well could have been her spirit. And there's actually some pretty incredible YouTube videos out there, including one, life for flight helicopter going up, and you kind of see that same thing leaving there just as the person passed away. So you may have witnessed, exactly that, and how incredible to be present for that. Over on YouTube, we have some questions I'm going to go to just for a moment. And absolutely, you can ask questions, Cupid. But Isabella's asking, is refrigeration still needed after embalming? And that's a great question. So once the embalming's done, refrigeration should not be required. We have to either embalm or refrigerate to care for the remains. We're required in our state to do one or the other, and begin those within 24 hours after we receive the remains into our care. But if the family does select embalming, which isn't required by law, but it's just one option, if you do select it, then refrigeration should not be necessary.
Were you just asking one from YouTube?
Yep. I'll
Okay.
just ask the one from YouTube. Yep.
Okay. When cremated and the parents want to split the ashes, why can't there be 2 ID tags?
So the ID tag is going to have one specific number on it. And when those are made, it's made with one specific number on it. That way there's never any chance of that number being duplicated. So it's really in the best interest of the family that there's only one ID tag per set of cremated remains, because that one number is going to follow the individual throughout the whole process. What is that?
Car.
Is it a car?
They go fast.
Oh my gosh, way too fast. Anyway, so the one ID tag is going to have that one specific number that's going to need to be there. Now, it doesn't mean they can't be identified, though, somewhere differently or somehow differently with that number being shared. But the actual ID tag that followed them through is going to need to be one.
How long does a body take to become unidentifiable after burial and embalming?
So, Steph, it's kind of difficult to know because most of the time we don't disinter them. We don't unbury them. But I always say that if the embalming was done successfully, and let's say they were buried in a relatively perfect, environment, meaning not too wet of an environment, and, in some sort of a liner or vault, I would say that before nature began to actually win and start to break the individual down to eventually skeletal remains and clothing, you'd probably be looking anywhere from 6 months to maybe a year and a half.
Carolyn thinks that her grandma had too much embalming fluid. She didn't even recognize her.
Yeah, sometimes, Carolyn, I'm so sorry you had that experience, but sometimes it's just not an exact science or art. And sometimes the pressure is too much. Sometimes pressure is raised during the embalming procedure because we're trying to get through blockages or clots. And sometimes that can create swelling, especially if the individual was retaining fluid prior to that anyway. There might have been an issue that kind of amplified that. But I am sorry that it happened. I'm going to go over to YouTube question just for a second. And that is, if you want to do a discernment, do you call the home or walk in about a job? I feel like you don't just walk in. Yeah, I mean, I would, it probably depends on your area and depends on if you know them or not. But I certainly would try to call and make an appointment just because they may have services going on. See if they have time just to sit down and talk to you. Maybe kind of start just by saying, hey, I want to ask them questions about the industry, about the profession, and explore some options for me to be able to start to get some experience. So I think a call would probably be best.
Did you have to learn about or observe the active dying process during your education?
Yes. And it's there's many questions on the national board exam about dying and death and signs of death, even, prior to the individual dying. So that's all part of it, just because it helps us understand how to best care for them afterwards, especially if we have an understanding of the death, how they died, the cause of death, the days or weeks, prior to that. So, and on YouTube, why are cremated remains not legally classed as human remains? As far as I'm concerned, they are. I mean, they still are human remains. They just have been cremated, and they're really handled the same way. If for some reason we come across some abandoned cremated remains, we're going to turn them over to the coroner, just as if it was human remains.
At my mom's viewing, I noticed a clear liquid leaking from her skin. Why did this happen?
Well, my guess is that she probably had a little bit of edema before she died, meaning she may have retained some fluid. And the drying process of the embalming procedure. So embalming is a drying process. And oftentimes that's going to kind of facilitate some of the fluid, the extra fluid, to actually come through the skin. The skin, in a way, kind of sweats it out. If we have enough time, we'll allow that to happen, and sometimes it'll bring much of the swelling down. But if there's not a lot of time, sometimes there's still going to be some excess fluid that will still come through the tissue. So I'm sorry that happened to you, and if it was upsetting to you. And then on YouTube, let's go to one other question here. I guess it's more of a comment. The way you serve families is sacred and helps us get closure. Thank you. Well, it's truly, truly, truly my honor. But thank you so much for saying that. Our ultimate goal is to set people up so they can begin to get closure. It's just the beginning process that we do, but we do our best to help them get started on that as well. But thanks for joining us tonight.
Does your job give you nightmares? Are you ever grossed out?
I've never had a nightmare. I have never had a nightmare about anybody that I'm currently serving at the mortuary. I've served in the past. Really never have had a bad dream about it at all. Sometimes I'll wake up worried about something that, we need to make sure that we get done in preparation for a service. And as far as being grossed out, yeah, there's situations that, there's odors that I'll never get used to. Trauma doesn't really gross me out. It can be very upsetting and traumatic sometimes, emotionally. Advanced stages of decomposition can sometimes be very, very uncomfortable, just because not only the odor, but the sight of it, really more so than trauma, is advanced stages of decomposition can unfortunately be very upsetting. So.
Are you familiar with the movie Autopsy of Jane Doe? And if so, can you comment on the technical dyer?
Yeah, so I have not seen it yet. I've been asked several times about it, and it's on my list to see. And maybe if I spend a little less time on the porch and more time in front of the TV or the iPad, I'll get it done. But it is on my list to watch, because I do get asked about it all the time, but I have not seen it yet. So.
Can I still read one?
Sure. Or let me read one. You got one pinned already?
I did.
That's fine. Yeah.
Sorry, if we're going every other, I'll know for next time.
No.
I'm 51 and I'm so terrified of dying. Is there anything you can tell me to give me some comfort?
Yeah, absolutely. So I often tell people that any fear of death is fairly easily dissipate. I mean, you can totally almost just completely eliminate it if you refocus your attention on life. And I know that seems oversimplified, but here's the thing. We're all going to die. We don't have a choice. We don't really even have a choice of the time, the day, the place, the manner. We're all going to reach it. So that alone is really not worth the energy to fear it. But probably more important is my philosophy that I've acquired, especially working in my industry, that there is really no guarantee of when there's no guarantee of when that's going to happen. And there's no guarantee that today's not the last day. So why not be grateful for what you have now and who you have in your life, and focus on them and everything that you have, because any energy taken away from that is really going to take away from those you love and things that you love. And I just think it's so important that every day we wake up with the realization that we may not end up back there that night. Or if we come back, everyone that we leave in the morning may not be there. And I think that along with that and the gratitude of they and them, then you will easily start to refocus from fearing death to just being grateful and joyful about life. At least that's worked for me. All right, let's check over here real quick on YouTube. So it looks like from New Zealand. Wow. So in New Zealand, they don't have the same law around how remains can be handled once cremated compared to non-cremated. Okay. Yep, that might be. I have a good friend in New Zealand who is a funeral director, so I can check with him as well, but I'm sure you're correct. So, and Cupid says autopsy of Jane Doe is so scary. Yeah, well, I'm up for that. We will definitely, we'll definitely find the time to take a look at it. So,
Is it disrespectful to separate part of the cremated remains into pendants before burial of the remain?
I don't think it's disrespectful. I think ultimately it's whatever it's going to bring your family peace of mind and comfort. But here's what I'll tell you professionally. Here's what I tell people professionally all the time. My only concern with putting cremated remains in jewelry items is that jewelry items can sometimes easily get lost or misplaced. And if there's a little bit of somebody in that and it gets lost, well, that loss is even more amplified. So I caution people to either, if they're going to do it, wear it on very special occasions, not an everyday jewelry item. And also maybe make sure that they hold back a little bit of the cremated remains. That way, if it does get lost, they still have some that they can replace it with. So, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. No, go right ahead.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
go. I'll let you know if I've got somebody over on YouTube. We are, so those of you that are joining us, we are, we're going live on YouTube tonight for the very first time, trying that out because we have some people that are following us on YouTube now that don't follow us on TikTok. We love our TikTok home. And if any of our TikTok, family haven't followed us on YouTube, we encourage you to do that as well at Eric the Undertaker. Thanks so much for the heart. Greatly appreciate that. 901 Nurse. Go ahead, honey. Sorry.
It's okay. Kayla wants to know, why did the funeral home give me a paper to fly with my uncle's remains?
Yeah, called a transit permit, Kaylin. It's very important that you have that because if most of the time, if not all the time, TSA is going to ask for it. They're going to want to see it. But it's basically your permit to take the cremated remains out of the state you're in to another state. So.
How do you make sure cremated bodies' ashes aren't mixed into the next?
Yeah, Kristen, it's a great question, and it's really actually fairly easy because the first thing you need to realize is that cremated remains, when the cremation is over and we bring the door up of the cremation chamber, what's left, and really the only thing that's left, is recognizable skeletal remains. You got to remember, we're so much made up of so much water that most of us during fire cremation goes back into the air. Only thing left over is skeletal remains. Very large pieces. And those are easily removed. It's not like it's wispy pieces of paper thin ash, like from a fireplace. It's skeletal remains that are removed. And we use a wire brush to remove those. So it's completely clear before the next person goes in. So Jill, thanks so much. Appreciate that. Welcome everyone. If you'll continue to tap on the screen, that's just going to let other people know that the porch is open for our live tonight, which wasn't scheduled. Thanks so much, Shane. We appreciate the rose. And any daily heart me's that you have. Oh, I wish I had some popcorn right now. Thanks so much for that, Erica. Thanks so much for the lightning bolts. That's on our goal list tonight in honor of the rain that we're getting, the wind and the rain.
E-Bike asked how you stay so slim with all the funeral potlucks.
Well, interesting. Funeral potlucks. Actually, I've got a porch talk coming up about potlucks. Where I grew up in Colorado, in a small community in Colorado, farming community. And their funeral potlucks were, I mean, they were just like that
Top-notch.
hat. Yeah, they were top notch. That was the thing. You didn't do a funeral without a potluck. And even funeral service there, if you didn't schedule another service after because you had to go to the potluck after. I've eaten so many scalloped potatoes and ham at funerals. I can't even tell you. But where I am now, it's not as much of a thing. You know, sometimes they'll have receptions after, but I miss the potlucks. So maybe that's why I stay so thin, because it just doesn't happen
Don't
too
happen
much.
as often.
Yeah, it doesn't happen as much. Go ahead,
Can I
dear.
continue?
Yep.
Okay. We can dispose of remains anywhere we want, right? If there's cremation?
Well, no, you're Ohio football girl. So you need to check with your state regulation. Here's the official answer. There's going to be regulated things that you can do with cremated remains in different states. Here's the unofficial answer. Any private property is going to be perfectly fine. Scattering at sea is going to be perfectly fine. There's probably going to be specific regulations how far off the coast you have to be. But really, as long as it's unrecognizable and it's on property that you own, there's not going to be any problem. There really isn't ash police that run around and check on it too much. You just need to be smart and dignified about it. So,
Sherry Williams, I have learned so much about cremation from you. Comforting facts. So appreciative to you.
Sherry, thanks so much. And we appreciate you joining us. Oh, Cupid on YouTube says, do you have a brother named Jason Bateman? Do you have a brother named Jason Bateman?
No, not that I know of.
Not that I know of either. Yeah.
But you've had that question here on TikTok tonight as well.
Have I? Yeah.
Mhm.
I've had that question since I was 12 years old, and I think he started on Silver Spoons or something like that. So we're actually very close in age. So I've kind of grown up, parallel to him. But no, I don't think so. I don't think he has a brother that's an Undertaker. But
Do you have to deal a lot with bad smells?
yep, we do, Drea. But and I'd like to tell you that it's something you get used to, but you really don't get used to it. At least I don't. I don't have a lot of tolerance for really bad smells. We have ways where you have industrial strength deodorizers. Oftentimes if there's a smell, an odor, we need to find the source of it, and sometimes it means that we need to treat an area. And if it's somebody that's in advanced stages of decomposition, then there's not much we can do with it, except for care for the person as best as possible and as quickly as possible. Lola, thanks so much. E-Bike, thanks so much. Appreciate the gifts.
If you want to be cremated, do you have to be embalmed?
No, you don't. In fact, unless you're going to have a service that's going to require an extended amount of viewing or an extended service time, casketed service, that type of thing, public viewing, public service, chances are you're not going to need to be embalmed. You can be cared for under refrigeration. Possibly your family and close family or friends could possibly even view you without embalming. So generally it's not required by law. And if there's a way we can do it and not go through the embalming process, which is really not the most natural procedure, then we will definitely do it.
Well, if you're not embalmed, when does a body have to be cremated or buried?
Well, there's really no specific timeline. Our only regulation in our state is we have to begin refrigeration or do the embalming procedure within 24 hours after we receive the remains. Refrigeration is going to slow down the natural process, so preserve temporarily. So will embalming. And sometimes for various reasons, 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes more, we have to care for someone before a final disposition, and that's perfectly fine. They can still be cared for very easily and still in the dignified manner. So great question, though.
Do you have any scary moments you can share?
Scary. I really don't have any. I've never really felt scared in my industry. And that's probably a little disappointing because you're probably looking for a good ghost story. I have a staff member or two that have some ghost stories that I'll bring them on sometime and they can tell you. But I've really never felt like I had a ghost, come up to me and begin to talk with me. And I've really never felt anything but really a sense of peace. I've been startled. And there's things that, I'm not, if I'm in the funeral home in the middle of the night and all of a sudden I hear something fall over aloud, I jump but really no different than if I was at home.
I scared you with your Google.
You did scare me with my Google. Was that at the mortuary?
I was here at home, but I logged in and I spoke.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. You did that was a little alarming. So on the Google Hub, which I have in my office, and it has a camera in it, so she can check in every now and then and say hello. But I wasn't expecting it when she did do it.
And it was turned down low, apparently.
It was turned down low, so it was almost like a whisper. I was hearing a whisper, and I'm like, and
nobody was there. Everyone had left for the day.
No, I was the only one there. And honestly, I had to actually immediately start thinking all of the times I've told people I've never heard a ghost, I've never seen a ghost or anything, and then I'm starting to hear this voice. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So let me see what we have over on YouTube here. Do you have to eat when you can throughout the day as a director? Yeah, oftentimes, Cupid, we do. We have to fit in things in between. Just because, not only do we have scheduled things going on, but a lot of what we do is unscheduled and very unpredictable. So sometimes we miss lunch as well. But I always get my coffee in. Yeah. Oh, thanks so much, Cupid. The Cupid on YouTube says the woman's voice is gorgeous. And it is, isn't it? But thank you for saying that, because this is brand new. YouTube's brand new to us. Normally we go live on TikTok. In fact, right now we have 1.2 thousand people in the room on TikTok, but I was curious if you were going to be able to hear the questions that she was asking. So that's affirmation of that. So I appreciate your help there.
On TikTok, they think I sound like Siri.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I never thought about it, but
when I listen back to the lives, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm going to repin. One of our moderators pinned this, and I just found it because it timed out. Oh, looks like she just repinned it.
Okay.
Luann, my sister passed due to a car accident. She lived for 3 days, but why could I smell death?
You mean while she was still alive? Is that what?
During those 3 days, maybe?
Yeah. I can't medically answer that. I can say that, if in essence she was dying and her systems were beginning to shut down, then you very possibly, could have smelled changes, within her. But I'm so sorry. And, not only the death, but just that journey of, having to sit by her bed during that time frame and hoping and praying for the best, and slowly starting to realize that wasn't going to be the outcome. So I'm so sorry you went through that.
I have a follow-up from Kristen I want to read. You said the cremation remains were larger skeletal, so where is the ashes part?
Yeah, that is the ashes, Kristen. So the term ash is really a misnomer. There really isn't such a thing. The only thing that's left after cremation, fire cremation, actually after any cremation, aquamation, terramation. Terramation will produce earth, but cremation results in only the bones that are left, and the bones have to be processed down to a consistency like between sand and crushed seashells, and that's what's going to be given to the family, what's known as ashes, but it really isn't. We try to avoid the term ashes because it's not that at all. It's cremated remains. So Cupid on YouTube, TikTok is the same. Eric the Undertaker. There are a few imposter ones, but if you go to Eric the Undertaker, and I think we have right around 47,000, 46,000? 47,000 followers right now. That's the one you want to follow. So, but thanks so.
Cactus Flower, our friend, is here. She found out about you last week and has been coming ever since. Honestly, it feels like talking to a friend.
Yeah, we consider you a friend already, Cactus. I've noticed you, and thanks so much for joining us. And we appreciate you on the porch, and we appreciate the comments. I've noticed comments in some of the posts as well. So thanks so much for being part of our porch community.
Ted wants to know, is embalming done one time, or does it have to be done frequently based on how long the body will be stored?
Nope, just a one time only. It would be very difficult to do again because the embalming is a drying process, and all the tissue is going to dry out via the chemical, really. So it's going to be, once that's done, there's going to be hardening of the tissue, the organs, and even the circulatory system. So it'd be very difficult to open the arteries back up and try to embalm again. So we can sometimes go back in and treat kind of with sometimes we have to do cavity treatments or things like that, or injections from the exterior, but not arterially or through the circulatory system.
What kind of school and training do you need to do to become a mortician?
Great question. So it's going to vary from state to state. Most states are going to either require the equivalent of an associate's or a bachelor's degree before you go to Mortuary Science College. Rebecca, thank you. And then after that, Mortuary Science College is generally a 2-year academic program, and then 1 to 2 years of internship or apprenticeship after that. And there's generally 2 licenses, and you can either get one or both. So a funeral director's license and an embalmer's license. Mortuary Science College is generally going to result in both those licenses. So you'll probably be dual licensed after your state boards. So,
How long does it take for remains to cool?
great question, Judy. So generally, the cremation itself takes 2 to 3 hours, and then there's a cooling period that's going to take at least an hour, sometimes a little bit more. Sometimes we kind of have to help facilitate that if, families need cremated remains sooner, and we can help, cool them down with a fan or something. But generally at least an hour after the cremation to get it to cool enough that we can do the processing. Thanks so much for the lightning bolts, Renee, Lola, and Susie. I saw you on there. They're both 2 of our wonderful moderators as well. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Butch wants to know how he can find a job after becoming licensed.
Well, I don't think you're going to have a problem. I rarely hear of anybody having difficulty finding a position in the industry. Networking is key, and, talking to other funeral homes, sometimes talking to some of the suppliers, some of the casket suppliers, they kind of go around and know everybody. Oftentimes things are posted in some of the trade rags, as I call. There's different newspapers and magazines, but and it also going to depend on where you're going to, want to end up, practicing your profession. So
You were looking at YouTube, so I wanted to see if you had any.
Just checking out.
update
No,
there.
I think we're still learning on YouTube, but we've had several come through tonight, so that's great. TikTok, if you don't follow us on YouTube already, go ahead. I encourage you to do that as well. We are going to be having some different content on YouTube. Some of it's going to be longer form. And eventually the chats will probably, or the lives and chats will be a little bit different over there as well. So go ahead. It's Eric the Undertaker as well on YouTube. Instagram's the same, Eric the Undertaker.
If there are only bone remains, what happens to the rest of the body tissues?
Yeah, well, most of this is made up of water, and it's totally consumed and ends up going back into the air. So really the only thing that is left is skeletal remains after that.
I wish you were in California for my very future needs. You are a comfort and so not the stereotype.
Well, Kristen, we actually are in California, but California is a very big state. But boy, I hope you have many, many years ahead of you of life before you ever need anybody like us or us. But thank you so much for saying so. We greatly appreciate that. Oh, we have something over here. Yep, you keep these. Yes, we are going to. The YouTubes are actually going to stay up after. So I had a question on YouTube about whether or not they will be cataloged. And one of the good things about YouTube is the lives will just automatically stay there and they'll become a video. We're actually putting some of the ones from TikTok over on YouTube as well. So you can watch the full hour and a half, 2 hour live on YouTube as well sometimes, even if we didn't record it on YouTube. So,
Are you able to tell if someone passed from a heart attack by looking at them?
well, sometimes, Grace, the telltale signs are the care that they received. There may be kind of burn marks from the defibrillators that possibly were used. Sometimes the lines, the IVs that were added, make it very obvious that they were in major cardiac arrest, maybe due to a myocardial infarction, which is a heart attack. So, but other than that, as far as the actual remains, generally not. Sometimes if they lived for a while and there was a lot of fluid that was given to them intravenously, then they will, they may have swollen a little bit, because of retaining some water, signs like that. But that can be from other causes of death as well.
I have been scared of cremation all my life. Should I be concerned?
No, I'll tell you what I tell people all the time when they ask me. Leo thinks so much, and 901 Nurse thinks more of the lightning bolts. I tell people when they question, we don't know whether or not we want to do burial or cremation. And ultimately, I want them to decide what's going to be best for you. Thanks for the heart. But the results are going to be the exact same. If you're buried, you're going to eventually get to skeletal remains and clothing. That's all that's going to be left. And if you're cremated, you're going to get to skeletal remains, which is going to be processed down. Burial is going to take months to years for that to happen. And cremation is going to take 2 to 3 hours. So it's just a quicker way to get to the same result. But ultimately, it's going to be up to you and your family what you're going to find more peace at. 1.2 thousand on the porch tonight in TikTok.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And we have an amazing 3 in YouTube.
Very
for the
cool.
first time. Yes.
Do you believe in an afterlife? Is there anything you would recommend for us folks to focus on now?
Nikki, great question. Boy, you're barking up my alley. Yes, I believe in an afterlife. My Christian faith, through my Christian faith, I have that promise of eternal life after. So, which helps me not only as a person, but as a professional, because it would be very difficult to do what I do without the promise of something more after. What you should focus on now is exactly everything you have and everyone that's in your life. Love them, embrace them, practice joy in every aspect of your life, and don't focus on death. Set that aside and know that there's a promise for more after. And right now you're called to live, love, and reach and prosper in the life that you've been given. And if you do that, any fear of death will just completely dissipate and you won't have any problems. That's my advice and my key to living a joyful life without any fear of death.
Hello, I'm interning at a funeral home, and I was wondering if you have any words of advice.
Yeah, Jenkins. I often tell people that are new in the industry or fairly new in the industry, I don't know how long you've been doing it, I encourage them to make sure that you set aside time for yourself. We are passionate about caring for other people in this industry. And when we wake up in the morning, our focus almost immediately goes to that. We want to care and love those that come into our care. So it's sometimes very easy to forget about ourselves. And not only just on a daily basis, but just in general, because if we put all our focus on caring for other people and very little or no focus on making sure that we stay healthy, both emotionally and mentally, it can be very heavy on us. And what happens is that we can get burnt out. And there's a lot of incredible people that start out in this industry and then reach a point of burnout, and we lose them, where I think we probably could have kept them and they could have succeeded incredibly as professionals in this industry if they had learned how to care for themselves from the beginning. So make sure to take your time. My three coping, which everyone in here or any of our existing Porchketeers know, is faith, family, and fun. And if you just focus on those, and anytime you have a bad day or anytime you need to reset yourself, go to your faith, go to your God, reset yourself, recenter yourself. Always surround yourself by your family and that can include friends. Family's not always just blood. And create and weave joy in every aspect of your life, even what you're doing at work. Make it joyful.
Jean wants to know, the guy from last night with the 3 things in his pocket, what did he die from?
Yeah, he died very sudden myocardial infarction, which is a heart attack. Probably died instantly from what I was told and what I remember. So, are most of the decedents you care for older in age? Yes, they are. Thankfully, most people live a very long and prosperous and live to an elderly age, and people are living longer. I mean, it's not uncommon nowadays to have people well into their 90s and sometimes even more. So, and I'm thankful and grateful for that, Cupid, because if we had people, the tragic situations, the young deaths, absolutely the children that die, if I had to deal with that on a daily basis, and that was the majority, rather than people that have lived a long, prosperous life, it would be very difficult to do what I do. So,
Mother Rain wants to know, what is the percentage of water that our bodies carry?
I can't remember the exact, but I think that we are made up of more than 70% water, which is the reason, and I'll confirm that. I'll have to get back to my, textbook education again, but it's definitely over 50%. And I think it's over 70%. We are made up of water. But what I was going to say, that's why it's so important that we stay hydrated, right? Or when we get dehydrated, we start to feel so awful, and it can completely, diminish us and debilitate us because, our bodies need that so much because we're made up so much of water. So thanks so much for the taps. Greatly appreciate that. Continue any daily heart me's you have, dropping those in. And we're at 525 lightning bolts.
Yeah,
almost halfway.
I think the rain is lessened here too. I don't feel too cold.
Oh, you're not? Well, the
Not
heater's
over
working
here.
well, so that's good.
Just me, Nene. My mom passed last year, and the funeral home made a lot of mistakes, not giving us programs, etc.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, the attention to detail is what we really are there for. We're supposed to take a lot of that burden away from you. It's supposed to seem, our ultimate goal is to make every single family feel like they're the only family that we're caring for at that time. And, a list of things that we need to incorporate to make that service happen, which might be overwhelming to some. We want to make sure that it just automatically falls, into place, and that when people show up, it's all there. And when something happens, and we make mistakes, we've made mistakes too, but when mistakes happen, it's really unfortunate because it's only one opportunity to serve a family for this death that they're honoring and respecting and memorializing. So we only get one chance. And when something goes wrong, it really is unfortunate. But I'm so sorry that it had happened to you.
I'm seeing a lot of back and forth between Beetlejuice and Mama Matcha. Both say I'm not reading or not pinning their questions. I'm not seeing their questions. I've either just missed it or TikTok is filtering it and I'm not able to see it.
Yeah, oftentimes TikTok will filter, and sometimes it's crazy what they end up filtering. So you may want to try to rephrase the question. Sometimes that helps. But
and
Allison,
if the question exists and I'm not seeing it, one of our other moderators can look for
Yep.
Mama Matcha or Beetlejuice.
Yep. We'll take a look and watch for it
But it
as
doesn't
well.
require a gift. No one has to
Nope.
gift. I'm just randomly trying to select from so many amazing questions.
Yeah, we don't require gifts at all. We appreciate them because that helps build the community and push the information out to others. But we don't require that ultimately. And if you don't get your question answered, you need to direct message me and let me know that you were trying to get it answered and it wasn't happening. That's fine too. You can also email me at erictheundertaker@gmail.com.
Okay. Have you ever had anything weird happen, like unexplained person movement or bed moved or something?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it weird. I've had situations that I call miracles, and I don't call them supernatural. I call them super holy, and because I do think ultimately my faith, because of my faith, I believe they ultimately came from God. Now they may have been helped facilitated by the Spirit or the person that passed away. I don't know. And I've had many stories that I've witnessed things that have happened that I would definitely call miracles. Wouldn't call them weird. Out of the ordinary, absolutely. You can find those if you go to my Porch Talk series on my TikTok, and you go on the main, right above all the posts, there's a playlist called Porch Talk. If you click on that, and you click on those Porch Talk stories, many of those talk about those. There's the watch, there's the balloon, there's the ornament, amongst some others that are in there. And I even start telling some of them. Sometimes, some nights we tell them here at the end of the live as well. So,
Kachow has a question.
yes, Erica.
I had to search for it. Do veterans have casket choices for the veteran or their spouse's funerals to choose from?
Do veterans have casket choices for the veteran or their spouses? Yes, because the veterans, the cemetery cost is going to be covered 100%, which is huge. If the honorably discharged veteran and their spouse can be buried at one of the national cemeteries, and it's not just Arlington, there's literally hundreds throughout the United States. So that cost is covered. The casket and the funeral is going to be at the expense of the family. Sometimes there's some reimbursement depending on the individual's situation of the veteran. And yes, the choices, there's many different choices that they can select from. So YouTube says your porch is beautiful. Is it a farm? Thanks so much. We appreciate that. We actually, we have a walnut orchard that we live in the middle of. So yes, in one way it is a farm. It's an orchard.
I thought I pinned Sherry Williams earlier, so if you already answered this, let her know. Asking again, can family members be kept in the same urn?
So good question. No, her question I think was similar but different. So this was not the same question. So there are urns that are called companion urns that are meant for two people. But it's interesting, Sherry, because even those urns have a separation in it, because legally in a lot of states, you can't commingle cremated remains, meaning they can't be mixed together. Now people do it all the time. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I just can't do it. And the urn industry is going to keep them separate, even in companion urns. But those are meant for two people. I don't know of any urns that are meant for above and beyond that. Although there are some, there's 50% of our lightning bolts. There are some cemeteries that have kind of community niches that I've been told that they will all go in together. But that's going to be specific to the state regulation also.
Everything Else 777 has followed you on YouTube.
Oh, thanks so much. Greatly appreciate that. Our goal is to get to, ultimately we want to get to 1,000 followers on YouTube. So, but we just started out. Our journey in YouTube is progressing along just fine though.
Why do ashes smell? They say they don't, but they for sure smell.
Squiggles, that's interesting. I mean, I've been smelling ashes for 27 years, and I don't know what that smell is. But maybe I'm just so used to it. To me, they just don't smell like anything. It's almost it's the ultimate clean, right? It's something that's been heated to the point of, between 12 or 14 and 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, very high heat. So it's completely sterile. So maybe that's the smell it is. But we certainly don't add anything. Although I've had suggestions that we should add different things. Somebody once said it almost smelled like incense, but I've never smelt that, not naturally. Tammy, thanks so much for the lightning bolts.
Beetlejuice is still trying to rephrase his or her question. It's not coming through yet.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, you can always
There's
direct
just certain
message
words
me.
I think that TikTok does not like.
Here's a question on YouTube. I'm a nurse and I love your content. Found you on TikTok and just subscribed. Just want to say thank you for all the great information you share. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate the follow there and your support on TikTok. And Kathy says, I told my kids to put my ashes in with all my pets. Just mix us all together. Well, Kathy, make it known so they can make that happen. But certainly nothing wrong with that.
What is the most unusual casket you have used?
Well, I've had caskets that were homemade, basically, which some of them are beautiful, and that family members have made. There's caskets that are made by a monastery that are absolutely beautiful, that are very unusual, all hand built and shipped in. They're built by the monks, a specific monastery in the Midwest. And those are absolutely incredibly beautiful. What else? Interesting caskets that I've had. Some of the caskets that we've had shipped in from other countries are very different, than what we're used to. And some of them, kind of have a glass coverage over it so you can kind of view even when it's closed, which isn't common here in the United States. So.
Do you think loved ones that have already passed away come back for someone actively passing?
Well, Angie, it sure sounds like it. I mean, many of, the hospice nurse channels that I have followed describe that, and how, and families that I've sat down to make arrangements with, they'll tell me the final moments of their loved one. And they often say, a day or two before, they'll start to recognize people in the room that have already died, and wondering if maybe they've come to kind of help them make that transition. I think that'd be beautiful, right? I kind of have hope for that. So we lost our son 5 years ago, our oldest son, and I often think about that, the next time I'm going to get to see him, and I wonder if he'll come back and help me cross over, so to speak. So he certainly would. I think he would actually get a kick out of that. So.
Marlene's cremation is all paid for.
That's amazing, Marlene. I think that's wise, and that's an incredible gift to your family or whoever is going to survive you. Now that you've got that done, you can spend money on other things, to live a joyous and exciting life. I hope you do it. Travel, do something you got it taken care of, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think she said how much she paid. Was it a little over $2,000?
Oh, is that same one? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, which is very reasonable. So.
Do funeral directors also do the embalming?
Well, funeral directors, generally states have two licenses. They'll have a funeral director's license and an embalming license. But many people are dual licensed, and that's what I call a mortician. Kind of, they do everything. But sometimes people are just comfortable with the funeral director part, which is assisting families, making the arrangements, directing services, taking care of kind of the paperwork. And some people are just, they're passionate about doing, the preparation lab work, mainly, dealing with the deceased, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm dual licensed, and many are, and that's what I call a mortician. It's just kind of everything's kind of encompassed in that. So, woo,
It's breezy.
here's the wind picking up.
Are remains considered biohazard?
Nope. Oh, well, are we talking about cremated remains, or are we talking about remains?
Let's answer both.
Yeah. So a deceased person needs to be cared for properly. Some of the things that are any tissue that we excise out of the remains for any reason, or after an autopsy that's not going to remain with them, that would be considered biohazard. Anything that's soiled during the transfer or anything like that from the deceased would be biohazard. But the deceased itself is really not considered biohazard unless there's a specific reason, for it. At least not if they're cared for in a normal condition. Now, if somebody hasn't been found right away and they have advanced stages of decomposition, then they very well could be a biohazard. So, honey, is there any way you can turn that light a little? Are you able to reach that?
Oh, did it flip around in the wind?
Flipped around in the wind. It's like... Okay, perfect.
Why would a body be red flagged? And shouldn't they tell the family why the body was red flagged? And another person asked, what does it mean to be red flagged?
I honestly don't know. I've honestly never heard that term. I don't know what the situation was, Julie. Is there something specific you can give me? And I don't know if that's a specific state regulation term or, sometimes people, when they die of an infection, they'll have, that would be the closest, they'll have a caution, tag on them, or sometimes on the body bag if there was some specific infection, or if they had tuberculosis, or sometimes hepatitis or something like that. But I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
I have body donation. Any thoughts?
YouTube, I will get back to you and answer that question. Body donation is wonderful, Tammy. It's an incredible need for a lot of medical schools and research facilities that need remains that they turn into academic cadavers, oftentimes for anatomy classes and different research purposes. And they'll sometimes use them 2 to 3 years before ultimately cremation and then given back, to the family. So, and let's see, on YouTube, there was a question. If you choose cremation and want a traditional service first, is the casket used for the service rented or purchased? So it could be either. Actually, there are some funeral homes that have a rental casket, so there's an insert that goes into it, and that insert is what goes to the crematory. And then there's some funeral homes that don't have a rental casket. We currently do not. And the cremation casket is very cost effective and facilitates the service and viewing. And then the remains go to the crematory in that casket, and that casket is made out of a material that will be consumed during the cremation process. Great question.
ME says red flag in nursing means HIV.
Yeah, so different infections oftentimes are, they are marked differently when we come to pick them up. Here comes the puzzle game. HIV, we just don't see much HIV anymore, which is amazing. I'm grateful for that. But we use universal precautions. So honestly, we treat everybody, and I know healthcare generally does as well. We treat everybody the same. But oftentimes, there are certain infections, including HIV, that the hospital or even hospice nurse or whatever will let us know if it's known. But because of not everybody is known, that's why we treat everybody the same and take good care of ourselves and care for the loved ones and the public. So,
Shy 88's comment just timed out, but it was about she just went to a celebration of life and the deceased's hands were blue. What was that about?
Discoloration. I don't know if during the embalming process, that the fluid didn't get, there wasn't enough pressure, or there was blockage going to the hands. If often that's the case, they should have opened up, different arteries, even in the axillary area, or even in the wrist area, to be able to help do that. And sometimes the embalmer chooses not to do that. It's an extended amount of time. Listen, the tissue in the hands is very thin. There's, not a lot of, tissue. So it's going to dehydrate very easily after death and after the embalming process. So sometimes that drying process, because that membrane is so thin, can darken the skin as well. Mortuary cosmetics, though, should have covered it. We use cosmetics not just on the face, but even on the hands. So honestly, I don't like to judge. I really don't. But that should have been covered. If there was discoloration, it should have been covered with cosmetics. So,
how frequent do grave diggers find vaults filled with water when preparing an older burial plot?
Unfortunately, it happens. We can't. They can't. No one can control that for sure. For obvious reasons. And sometimes an adjacent grave, there will be cause issues for a new grave. Sometimes it will, even break open or kind of sink in, and they have to kind of restore that wall. Sometimes even add a new, section of the burial vault or burial liner to make sure that the new grave is cared properly.
Why are funerals so expensive?
Well, first of all, they're going to vary greatly. And people should always, if budget is a concern, they should check with at least 3 providers and see how much, they can vary. It's very expensive to operate a funeral home. We have an incredible amount of overhead, because our overhead isn't just about, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. It's 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, being available for people that aren't going to need us very often, but when they do need us, we have to be available. It's very expensive to provide the resources and the facilities to be able to accommodate that. Also, when you compare the expense to other major life milestones, weddings, different other celebrations, the cost is generally very similar, sometimes even less. So, question over on YouTube. Do others have this happen before death? Wife's grandpa, 91, lost his wife 4 years ago. This week he said she's been visiting in dreams and hearing her voice. He's very healthy, just sad over this. Yeah, I think that's very common. And, who knows? It can be anything from, his way to being able to cope and to navigate his own grief journey to maybe he is being visited. Maybe she is providing that support herself. We just don't know, right? So I think it's wonderful. I can, sense that you're very supportive of it and not dismissing it, which is great. And sounds like he's cognitively, very well, and he knows what he's doing. So if he says that's happening for whatever reason it is, and it's helping him, I think that's amazing.
Mickey thinks almost everyone fears death. Are you fearful of dying?
No, I'm not, Mickey. I really have no fear of death. First and foremost, because of my faith, because I know there is something more after this, and I have a promise of eternal life because of my faith. But more setting that aside for just a moment, because I've gone through personal loss myself, incredibly personal loss. Thanks for the porch lights. I love those. I've had to choose to refocus on not the people that I've lost, but the people that I have, and realize that they are a gift, and there's no guarantee that those gifts of those people are going to be with me forever, or even tomorrow, or even next hour. And I choose to be grateful for them, and I choose to love them in the present. I choose to, embrace them longer, and live life joyfully with them, and just be grateful. And because of that, I really have no fear of death. Absolutely no. Now, I have questions about death. There's a lot of mysteries about death, and I want some questions answered. And I wish I could get them answered now, but it's not going to happen. Most of the questions I have aren't gonna get to be answered until I actually face death myself. So,
Have you ever been a transporter?
Transporter? You mean as far as transporting human remains?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, well, we do it as a mortuary. I mean, that's part of what we do. But, we do have services, kind of like ambulance services, specifically for the mortuary industry as well, that help us as well. Maybe that's what you're referring to. Most of my transportation experience has been, the deceased that we transport. And, even going out in the middle of the night sometimes when somebody dies at home.
Peach says, my dad passed away last night, and now the coroner is involved and won't let us see him.
So I'm so sorry, Peach, that you landed here on the porch tonight. That's soon after. I think that that's temporary, and the normal circumstance and normal system of medical examiner or coroner, they're just needing to do what they need to do to investigate the death, do postmortem examination, possibly an autopsy, and then they will release your dad, back to the family via the funeral home. So then you can choose to have preparation and then get to see him then. But I know that time period's hard until that actually takes place.
Okay. Is it true that during cremation, the body makes sounds?
I've never heard a sound. I mean, the crematory equipment itself is very noisy, so it'd be very difficult to hear anything anyway. It's very loud. Sometimes our crematory operators even wear protective earphones for that specifically. But I've never heard anything above and beyond that. So,
Have you been noticing a lot of blood clots lately?
Justin, thanks for the question. We get it frequently. And yes, I have been noticing a lot of blood clots lately. But they're the same blood clots that I've noticed since I started embalming 27 years ago. The exact same blood clots that I started with 27 years ago are the same that challenge us as embalmers now. It's just part of the natural process. Coagulation of the blood is just part of the natural process and the decomposition process after we stop living. And removing clots to help facilitate transfer of the fluid through the arteries and draining of the blood through the vein is perfectly normal. And I've seen no changes in those clots since almost 3 decades of embalming. Goodness sakes.
Knocked in the head by the light.
I don't know how much longer we're going to last out here. We're like...
We're out in the wild,
risking
folks.
our lives. It's like well, not even close to a hurricane, right?
No.
But here we are on the porch, the wind and the rain. I'm even starting to feel the wind.
I'm going to read this next one just before
go
time's out.
ahead.
One of our moderators pinned it. 5 seconds. Do you think you should donate tissues? Does that change what you look like?
Well, Ashley, I think that, hi, Brett, it does make it more challenging for the mortician. But listen, if it does a lot of good for people. Tissue donation outside of organs. So what's being referred to as tissue donation is generally skin and long bones. Skin for skin grafts, long bones for bone, transplant, different bone marrow, I assume, things like that. But it's pretty invasive. It's incredibly invasive. And does it make it impossible for viewing? No, it doesn't make it impossible, but it is a lot more work for the mortician to restore the remains to a point where the person looks comfortable and at peace.
What is the most emotional aspect of your job?
I think, children are very difficult to deal with, but I think that what's kind of evolved with my loss of our son as a professional is now I have I have a connection to other parents that lose children more so than I ever did. And it's not only do I feel called to be there to support them, but it's also very, very difficult for me because it's almost impossible for me not to completely connect with them because I know exactly how they're feeling. And I want to guide them and be, a pillar of strength for them during that. But I'm not going to lie. It's almost every time like reliving my own loss. So that can be difficult for me. I guess I used to say it was just children in general that die, but I think that's almost kind of replaced it just because of the personal connection. So
have you noticed something, any evidence the police missed?
Stupid. No, I haven't. I've never really had that situation. I've heard of it happening, but the many, many counties that we serve, the medical examiners and coroners offices that we partner with are so thorough and so great that I've really never come across anything that would cause me to question what they've already done. They're just incredibly thorough with their investigations prior to the remains being transferred over to us. So
Beetlejuice's question came through.
Beetlejuice.
It was the one that's been filtered. They've
great.
reworded it. Now, it's still filtered, but it showed me this time.
Okay.
For me to approve it.
Okay.
Going to pin it and just cross my fingers that the words don't restrict you.
Okay.
So here we go.
Okay.
Didn't want to let it pin.
It wouldn't let it pin.
No, but okay, let me see if I can find it again. Is it true plugs of the buttocks are put in the people who are unalived? Genuine question.
Yeah. And it's a very valid question, and not all the time. It doesn't have to happen all the time, but there are situations. Do they make actual devices to do it? Yes. And if we don't use a device, sometimes we can suture, but it's not something we automatically do. Only if there is. Thanks, Melissa. Only if there's a situation where there's leakage present and we can't stop it any other way. Oftentimes the embalming process is going to stop it because it's going to kind of, it's a drying process anyway. It'll cauterize, many of the tissues. So oftentimes that'll take care of it. But I would say really, maybe 1 out of every 20 people do we have to provide that extra care. Yeah.
I'm glad we got that one
Yeah.
answered for
Yes.
you, Beetlejuice.
was
Beetlejuice was ready to go log off and just Google it.
and just Google it.
Mhm.
Well,
But now we got Eric the Undertaker.
now you got it direct from Eric the Undertaker. So
How do you remain so positive after the loss of a child?
I listen. I got years of I got years with my son, and every year that I got, every moment that I got was a gift. A gift. Our children really are never ours to keep. They are gifts from God, gifts from heaven. And listen, I would not wish for any other parent to ever experience what we experience when we lose a child. But with that said, we need to understand that every moment that we get with our child, with our spouse, with our parent, with our sibling, with our friend is a gift. Every single day is a gift, but there's no guarantee for more. And because of that, listen, this is 5 years after. This is 5 years of learning, growing and becoming stronger. So I didn't wake up the next day and be joyful about it. But I'm joyful in the aspect that I know my son is living an incredibly perfect life in eternity. And I know that I was greatly influenced by everything that he was to me, and I'm grateful for that. So why not be joyful about all of that? So,
How old was your son and what was he like?
all right, well, we're not going to talk anymore about my son tonight. I can only because I want to keep to the I want to keep to the certain level of questions, and sometimes I'm an open book and I want to support other parents about my son, but I also want to make sure that I maintain an energy level that I can answer some of the other questions. So we'll kind of filter that to the next live and then ask some more of those questions. So
Mickey's daughter has a good sense of humor. My daughter said she'll have me cremated and put in an hourglass so I will be on time for game night.
yeah.
Have you had that, Eric?
I've had that. I've heard of that before. My only question with that is because cremated remains aren't really ashes, so it's going to have to be processed down to a pretty fine amount to be able to get through that. And it's going to need to be a large hourglass. I think it's great. I think it'd be awesome if it can do it. I'm just afraid that it might get plugged. And that would be a bummer, because then what would you do with the game if it stopped? I mean, that would just throw the whole game off, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Remembering Brooke always recently lost her only child.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. And Brooke, I'm incredibly grateful. I have 5 other children, and children are gifts, and sometimes we get one, sometimes we get many. And I'm so sorry for your loss. But please continue to get to a place where you are grateful for everything that you got, with your child. That's my prayer for you. So, and on YouTube, Cupid says the body farms forensics. Can they only take whole bodies, or can they take organs too? I think questions go away. No, I don't think so. So about the questions, but I am learning on YouTube. But the body farms, I don't think they take organs, but I think they take whole bodies. Now, sometimes they may possibly dismember for forensic research purposes, just because they're putting them into different situations, different to be able to learn, from the influence of different environments on the remains. So that would be my only guess. But my understanding is they accept, full remains.
What happens to the remains that no one can afford to give a funeral?
Yeah. So, first of all, we're family owned, and oftentimes if there's a family involved and we need to help discount, find, different alternatives for them, we're going to do everything we can. Ultimately, if the person is almost to the point of indigent, then we get the public administrator or public guardian, sometimes a coroner medical examiner involved, and they will actually help facilitate that either by finding other family members, or sometimes the state or county has to help pay for it. So,
Can you explain a little of the cremation process?
yeah, so cremation generally is intense heat, so 14 to 1800 degrees, takes about 2 to 3 hours to break the remains down. Most of us, a good portion of us, is made up of water, so it's consumed and actually goes back into the air, which is pretty cool in itself. What's left after is skeletal remains. Skeletal remains then have to be swept out of the cremation chamber, and then they go through a processor. It's almost like a pulverizer that breaks it down into a consistency between sand and crushed seashells, and that's what's actually given back to the family as cremated remains. So the term ashes is kind of a misconception, because it's really not. It's not ashes. So
Did you have more questions on YouTube? I don't want to
no, I think we're good.
take over. Okay.
No, I think we're good. So
Are
with
cremated
this.
bodies clothed? And another friend asked, and what happens to the clothes?
yeah, clothing is completely optional, and if the family has special clothing they want the deceased to wear and they're not already in it, they can bring that in. We will, dress them in that clothing before they go to the crematory. If they don't bring in anything, we always make sure they're clean, even bathe them if needed, sometimes shave them if that was their preference, even if they're not going to be seen, and then they'll put them in a clean hospital gown if they don't have anything else, or a clean white sheet, and they'll go to the crematory in that. So,
I
good
told my
evening.
daughters to spread my remains. They asked, what if you fly into someone's mouth?
Got to be careful. You got to be careful and pick your wind. Pick your wind well when you're scattering cremated remains, because it can happen, friends.
Especially on a boat, huh?
Especially on a boat. Especially on a boat in the middle of San Francisco Bay, which I've been on several times. It definitely can happen. So, oh gosh, thanks. We are at 794 of our lightning bolts, approaching our goal very quickly. We picked lightning bolts tonight just in honor of the storm. I don't know if you can hear the rain and the wind. It's definitely more than the other night, but that makes it interesting. Janet, thanks so much. We are, and our daily, if you've got a heart and you can drop it in, that makes you part of our fan club also, which helps us recognize you. And we can, it's not that we want to, it's beginning to recognize you in comments and online. And especially if you're going through your own grief journey, then that's incredibly important to us. If we could hold off on the pinning while I'm talking, just so I don't want to end up missing a question. But sometimes I'm going to take a break and just talk a little bit. That would be great. So yes, the daily heartme's are incredibly helpful. What those do, as well as the tapping, just to help you understand, the numbers up here are awesome and we appreciate those, but they don't mean a lot. But what they do for us is they are acknowledgement of what we're trying to build. And the platform, what we are trying to build, is actually a community where you all can come together and support each other on your own grief journey. Many of you are on parallel grief journeys. You've lost parents, you've lost spouses, you've lost children, siblings, friends, and we want to be able to connect you. And we've already seen that. We've seen that not only on the porch here, but I've heard about it happening even off the porch as well. And what else, Allison? Do we have anything else that we're going to talk about tonight before we get blown away? All right, we'll get back to some more questions now. My name's Eric. I'm a licensed mortician. I'm Eric the Undertaker on TikTok and on YouTube now as well. And I am honored to share experiences that I've had, everything from funerals to the deceased to families we've served. Oftentimes, they may even be funny stories, but all those stories turn into life lessons, and I get to come on here and share them with you. I share that via my Porch Talk series, which is created content, the videoed content, And then a couple of months ago, we started hopping on the porch live and actually getting to talk with you and answer any questions you have regarding death, dying, sometimes just anything you've ever wanted to ask a mortician, but maybe we're afraid to ask. Well, we don't want you to be afraid to ask. We want you to be able to ask anything you want to kind of demystify, take away the mystery of the industry. And many of you ask about, fearing death, and I think that helps as well. The more you know about it, the more you educate it, the more you're comfortable with it. It really helps in all of our process. So.
What's your opinion on Appalachian death culture? I'm an Appalachian and curious on others' thoughts.
Well, Jerica, I can't, honestly, I don't know much about it. I'm far, far away from the Appalachian community, really. And we've had some that have moved into the area. So that's really a culture that I'm not very familiar with. I know there's some incredible beauty and music and culture that comes from that area. But as far as the funeral industry, I would be curious to learn more if you can teach me more about that.
What is the most common cause of death that you see?
Well, Steph, cancer still beats everything. There's so many different horrible types of cancer. And so we still put that on a death certificate more than anything else. Second to that is probably cardiovascular, pulmonary diseases, different COPDs, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. And unfortunately now we see an incredible increase to epidemic level of overdose, many of them fentanyl, sometimes slow overdose, what I call slow overdose via alcoholic cirrhosis. So that's on the increase as well.
Best advice on approaching after-death care subjects.
Best advice on approaching after-death care subjects. Bella, so I'm just trying to make sure I understand the question. After-death care subjects. Are you talking specifically when I know you're venturing out into the funeral industry? So when you're talking to other people, is that what your question is referring to? And if you can give me a little bit of a follow-up on that. I think there's a great question lying there. I just want to make sure that I answer it correctly.
I'll keep my eye out.
Yeah, let's watch out for Bella. She's one of our friends from New Zealand.
What happens to the blood after you drain it?
It goes down the drain. Everybody is always generally shocked by that, but it's like any other waste. It goes down the drain and goes through any type of water treatment,
How soon, when you receive someone, do you start the process?
Well, we're required to either begin refrigeration or do the embalming procedure within 24 hours. Now, sometimes we'll start refrigeration and they may be under refrigeration for several days before the family decides to do the embalming procedure. And that's perfectly fine too. But we have to take one direction or the other within 24 hours into our care. Now, it generally happens a lot sooner than that. I mean, I've taken 2 death calls this evening, and they both immediately went into refrigeration to begin care until we know exactly what's going to happen. So,
have you ever or will you ever cremate one of your loved ones?
We cremated our son. We chose to have our son cremated. So, and his cremated remains stayed at home with us for a couple of years, and then ultimately we purchased a tree in a memorial forest where his cremated remains are around that tree. It's a 178-acre forest, and that's all the trees are dedicated to different people that have passed away in families or available for other families.
Can I have my death certificate say visitation from God?
I don't think so, but unless that's your name, you could change your name to that if you wanted to. But as far as a cause of death or anything else, I don't know if we could put that on there, dig or do.
Why is blood not kept for blood transplants?
It no longer is living. Those cells are no longer living, Leslie, so it would not be a viable transplant opportunity. That blood begins to change very quickly. That's where those clots come from. The coagula begins. So it's those are cells. Blood is made up of cells that begin to die as well.
My sister swears she saw a tear falling from my brother-in-law after she placed my nephew on his chest.
Well, I am so sorry for your loss, and what an incredibly touching moment. and I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened, but you know what? It doesn't really matter. Your sister needed to see that. And whether it was a miracle, whether it was scientific and that it was a cause from moisture coming off, it had meaning for her. And that moment and that meaning and that instant was exactly what she needed.
Sorry, I didn't pin.
That's okay.
Sometimes
No
TikTok
problem.
says nope. This is what it was, though. I'm going to read it. What happens if you get a call late at night? Do you have to go into your funeral home?
Well, generally, I have people that are on call that are actually going to respond to the death if we have to actually roll and send somebody out to pick the individual up and transfer them into our care that night if they die at home or if they die. Oh, watch that light and that wind. Goodness sakes, it's really blowing. I'll take the call and dispatch them out. On occasion, I need to go in to deal with things, and it's not uncommon, but it doesn't happen, very often. So.
Where do they have the trees places at, and what would it be called? Like where you put your son?
Yeah. So there may be different companies now, but the main one that we're familiar with is called a Better Place Forest, and there's several of them throughout many of them throughout the United States. So, and then on YouTube, our director gave us some of my aunt's hair before we watched her go into the cremation chamber. Normal. Yeah, you can take a lock of hair. Totally fine. Whether the family requests, we generally don't automatically do it, but if family requests, we'll do it. And do a lot of people watch their families go in there? I didn't know it was happening, but yeah. So we do have witness cremations, and they're not frequent, but they're not uncommon. I would say 1 out of every 40 choose to do that for us currently.
Do you believe that spirits attend their own funerals?
Yeah, I don't know, Steph. I don't have any reason to deny it or affirm it. I don't have them sign the register book when they, come whispering through the door. But it's possible. But I don't know. I don't know if they, would you want to be there? If it was you, and you had the choice, would you want to go to your own funeral? I think that's an interesting question, right? Would you, honey?
I would not.
You would not?
Mm-mm.
No.
I worry too much about. I don't let people talk. I don't want to hear it.
You don't want to hear it.
No.
You definitely
I'll take it too personally.
You don't want to view yourself because you don't want anybody.
No.
Yeah.
No. Just cremate me.
You take it too personally about what people are saying. They
Yeah.
just say nothing but wonderful things about you.
You never know. They'll say, "Remember her voice? It sounded like Siri." Drea has a question.
Yeah, somebody said yes, they would. They would want it. Yeah, Drea, QQQ.
How do you embalm someone? Like, how do you inject it?
Yeah, great question. So embalming is a surgical procedure, replacing the normal body fluid with a chemical preservative. And it's a surgical procedure. We have to make an incision over a major artery and vein. Oftentimes we use the carotid and the jugular up here along the neckline. We can use a femoral, and there's various entry levels, but those are some of the favorites, so to speak. And then we have to raise the vessels, meaning we have to raise the artery above. It's kind of a rubbery feel to the artery. And then the vein is more kind of a thin balloon feel-like to it. And we insert a cannula into the artery and then use a pressurized embalming machine to inject the embalming fluid through the artery. And then we open the vein and drain the blood out from the vein.
Did you know you reached your goal?
Did we reach our goal?
Yes.
Yes. Lightning bolts.
And Bella has an update.
Okay.
Referring to discussing with loved ones about their personal wishes for after death.
Great question. So, yeah, Bella, sometimes it's easier than others. So it's, and don't apologize. That's a great question. And it was probably worded the right way first time, and I just couldn't get it through my skull. But, I think that it's best generally if that discussion is planned, saying, hey, something's important to me and I want to have a discussion. Is there a time that we can actually sit down and talk about what your wishes are in the future? And that's going to do a couple of things. First of all, it's not going to catch them off guard. There's not going to be any awkwardness. And it's going to give them a chance to actually prepare for that conversation and think about it. So I think that's the most important thing to do to set you up for success for that is you actually schedule it and kind of preface it by saying, this is what I'd like to talk about, and then give them some time to, put those wishes together. Now, they may still have to scramble, and they may not even want to. If there's sometimes, especially men, generally don't like to talk about it. And sometimes it takes several kind of subtle conversations to get into it. Or you can say, hey, this is what I would like, for my wishes when I pass away. Have you ever considered what you would like? Sometimes putting it on yourself first and giving them permission to talk about helps as well. So hopefully that's helpful, Bella.
Looks like Steph's question got pinned again, so I'm going to pin a new one.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what I want for my demise. No cremation, nor embalming. What other choices?
So no cremation or embalming. So there's terramation.
Actually, I have a part 2.
Okay.
Susie Q is in Texas and just wants to be buried under a tree. No embalming or cremation. How?
So, there's green burial cemeteries. I don't know about it it can't be on any random hill that you pick. Generally it has to be in a cemetery. But there are cemeteries that do what they call green burials, which means there's sometimes no casket or a biodegradable casket, sometimes just a simple shroud direct to the earth with no concrete liner or vault. And then, it's very natural. So that may be what you're looking for. There's also terramation now, Susie, in many states, which is full body composting of the remains, which produces about 160 pounds of earth. And then the skeletal remains, and that earth can go back to a garden, forest, house plants, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This next question has never been asked. I've always wondered what is done with the register book. I knew you'd like that one.
Yeah, because you know how I feel about register books.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I think they're the biggest waste of money. And generally, who expects a register book is not the family, it's the people attending. They're like, where do I sign? And oftentimes, I'm gonna be real and straightforward with you. Oftentimes it's because they just want you to know that they were there, that they were acknowledged. I even sometimes will have families call down to the funeral home and say, hey, I can't make such and such's visitation or service. Can you sign my name? No, I'm not going to sign your name. If you want to send a card to the family, that's perfectly fine. But I'm not going to forge the fact that you actually were here in attendance. No, ma'am, sir, I'm not going to do that. Register books. What happens to register books? The family takes them home. They get shoved in a drawer someplace. And then the next generation dies and they end up at a freaking estate sale not knowing what to do with it. It's just a waste. We're trying to come up with something better. I think like a recorded video screen or something like that you could actually tell a story, that to share with the family about something you experienced with the deceased, or maybe even like the phones that you pick up sometimes at weddings and you tell a story, or
Love that.
yeah, or something, that's not just register books are
Obsolete.
such a waste.
Bella has a part 3.
Oh, right.
I cannot handle talking to my own family, but professionally it's easier. Strange, but true.
And I'd handle talking to my own family, but professionally
About
it's
after
easier.
death care.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And that makes total sense, Bella. It's not even as much of an expert as you are or you become. It's when it comes to your own family, it can be very, very difficult and awkward. So YouTube says those recorded phones at the front to record a message. Yes. Oh, are those like guest books? Yes, they are.
Register books, guest books.
Yeah. Yep.
Laura Tremblay found, it just got pinned over. I think she said she has 5 or found 5
Register books? Yeah.
Have you ever seen invertus sinus, totally backward organs?
Well, Chelsea, we haven't rarely do I see, thanks for the porch lights. Rarely do we see the organs. The only time we see the organs is if an autopsy was done And then the organs were all removed, and then they're put into a bag and sent back to the remains of the funeral home for us to treat them and put them back in the right places. But then that's, approximate anatomical area. It's not actually a position. So we don't actually ever open the person up and see organs where they were intended to be. So I'm generally not going to see that. Pathologist is going to see that, but I'm going to see the aftermath of that and have to put them back together. And we're going to put them back where they would normally go, I guess, because I wouldn't have known that anyway. So
Why does the skin turn a grayish pale color right after you die?
The settling, it's gravity, settling of the blood. I mean, blood gives a good portion of our the coloring to us, and when we die, we're kind of a big bag essentially, and our blood begins to settle per gravity, and that coloring is also going to leave at that time because it's going to be. And sometimes there'll be staining because where the lividity, where the blood ends up settling. So. Thanks so much for the roses. Thanks, Cupid. I appreciate that. I'm ready for you.
How big are the bones after cremation but before the crushing?
Generally recognizably big. I mean, you literally can open up the cremation chamber and recognize a skeletal remains. Oftentimes the bones have been shifted into different positions, but they're still very recognizable. So bones can be very large. There's some countries that don't actually do the processing, and they have big boxes that those bones go into, and they call them bone boxes. And there's Asian countries that do that. And actually, there's some that there's a ceremony that they do. They lay the bones out, or the bone box in the middle of a table, and they use chopsticks to pull each bone out and set them on the table at some family event. I don't know.
North says, we record the funerals at my parlor for our families much better than the books.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And we're looking at, digital. I mean, signature, it's not that I don't want people to be acknowledged. And sometimes it helps, when they're writing thank you notes or things like that. But that's why we make sure to take pictures of the flower cards and the pictures of the flowers and, recording services, so they have that after, is a wonderful keepsake for the family. But register books, I just think are a complete waste.
We have a lot of blood. How long does it take to remove it?
So, Kira, the embalming process is generally going to be anywhere with, let's say, non-autopsy. Somebody has not been autopsied. Circulatory system is totally intact. It'll take me 45 minutes to an hour and a half to do that type of embalming. And that's generally, you're removing blood almost the entire time that you are pressure pumping in the arterial fluid, the embalming fluid. So oftentimes, though, you'll get to a point where the blood you'll almost start to get embalming fluid coming out, and the blood less and less, which means that most of the blood has been removed. Do we ever get all the blood? No, we don't get all the blood. And you have to understand that tissues, the circulatory system, ventures out into even the smallest of capillaries. And so the goal is to get the embalming fluid, the preservative, into those tissues as well. But not all the blood is ever going to get removed. There's some situations where people are very dehydrated. It's very difficult to remove the blood. Much of that blood is so thickened, not only by dehydration, but because of the coagulation and everything, that's very difficult. And then we have to rely on the fact that we get a good amount of pressurized arterial fluid in there to help preserve the remains, and hope that's going to be the best.
Camperhead has a question. Eric, any advice on working through grief during the holiday seasons?
Yeah, and Renee, we're going to do some specific things about that, and you being part of that team as well, in talking about that, because it can be, it is. I mean, it's some of the most difficult times because there's so much celebration placed around, the holidays and just coming together as a family, and memories that are built in for many, many years past, around the holidays. I mean, so many of our photographs and just, memories and trips and people coming over and dinners are based around the holidays. So it can be a very, very difficult time when we've lost someone. Once again, I mean, we have to be grateful for all of those that we did get, with our loved ones. And listen, we lost our son, first part of November, and right before the holidays hit, and our neighbor just passed away just a night before last. And that was the first thing I said to Allison, gosh, right before the holidays, because it's really no time to prepare to try to get yourself into a momentum of your grief journey before you kind of have to go through the holidays. And I would say that our first year, we were just kind of numb, going through it. And we kind of forced ourselves to do it just to make sure, the ones that we our younger kids, we still had. I know, Renee losing a spouse, and everything that you would, even do just as a couple, must be incredibly difficult as you, approach, that time period and all the memories you've had. The specific advice that I have is really going to be so relative, to the loss and the individuals. But I would say this, so much of our holidays is built on traditions. Traditions sometimes, backed by our faith or religion. Traditions sometimes, based on our family traditions, and sometimes traditions based on those of us as couples that just kind of evolve into it. And I would encourage people to continue those traditions, even if they're without someone, because there's a connection. Those keep you connected to them as well. But yeah, we are going to find time and some specific lives to talk about that as we approach the holidays, and give people an opportunity and a source to be able to come in and share their own experience, because that's really the best advice that we can give, is learning from one another, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Renee.
Jean says, my sister's neighbor's son is buried in his backyard. He lives in the country. Looks like a graveyard.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard there are some states that are like that. That they do allow that. Not my state, but I have heard that there is private property that you can designate a certain area as a cemetery. And on YouTube, are your records now paper and digital? Is there really a basement of records? Yeah, not so much anymore. We are almost completely paperless now, which is amazing. Every digital, we're going to get blown off.
I begged for that for years.
We're going to,
Paperless.
Yep. And it finally happened. So almost all our digital records are literally in the, can be accessed to any of my staff, even on their phones, which is amazing. So, honey, I think we better get inside. I think
I'm going to blow away?
I think you're going to blow away, and the wind's coming in. So I think we better get inside and cuddle up. And but this has been an incredible, impromptu, unscheduled live. I
had one I wanted to pin.
Okay, sure. You can look for it. If we've missed your question tonight, please, we will be on tomorrow night as scheduled. There's a good chance I'll be on by myself early tomorrow morning. I generally do either a Saturday or Sunday early morning live, just impromptu, just by myself, sometimes before anyone is up. Brett, thanks so much. So you can look for that as well. But definitely tomorrow night we will be on. If you don't follow me already, please do so. We would be grateful for that, both on TikTok as well as YouTube, Eric the Undertaker. If you still have those heart me's, go ahead and drop them in as we get ready to close for the night. Did you find it, honey?
Yeah, it's pinned.
Okay.
I am an infection practitioner, and I hate that you guys use tools that are rusty. Why is that okay?
Well, we don't. We don't use tools that are rusty, but we do not have the possibility. We're not dealing with the living. So, but I do think that our instruments, as I call them, are free from rust. There really is no reason. They're stainless steel. If they're old, they should be replaced. But there's no chance of infection or anything happening who we're dealing with. Now, it's important that they're still clean and disinfected because we don't want cross-contamination of any type of bacterial infection, which can cause tissue gas or anything like that. But Christina, I agree with you. There really is no reason for there to be any rusty instruments. So,
Okay, here's a funny one.
okay.
Kristen said, I just sent a screenshot to my daughter, said, I'm being serious. Find him when I go.
Oh, Kristen's
That's
the
the
one
best.
from California, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So now it's...
I want to know what she said. What the what? We can fill in the blank.
That's funny. Well, reach out to us, Kristen.
Although there was somebody, maybe it was Kristen, somebody was asking specifically where you're located, what your business name is, and how to find you.
Yeah. So, and you can reach out to us a direct message, and we're glad to. And we've actually served people that we've met here on TikTok, but we have chosen to keep the business separate from Eric the Undertaker only because I don't want it to be filtered in any way. I don't want it to be about the business. I really want it to be about us building a community for other people to support and to get questions answered without the influence of our business at all. We have some wonderful clients that come to us, just naturally. And I've had a couple of that have reached out to me via TikTok, and because of geographically being located, I've had people in the other parts of the world, in the United States, that have needed advice that I've been able to give them, or I've referred them to other people that other professionals I've worked with before, and I'm more than honored to do that as well. So, but that's why we keep it separate. We keep the business and the information that we're trying to provide here online separate. We do have social media for the business separate, but that's just a different purpose. This isn't about marketing at all. This is just about helping people and connecting with people and meeting people and caring for people and other people caring for us. I get so much from you guys, and I've learned from you, and I've gotten advice from you, and just reminders, how to stay, healthy, both mentally and emotionally, and connected. I'm just incredibly grateful, for all of that. So, thank you so much, for all you do to us and what you provide to me and really my whole family. We love talking about it, right? And dinner conversations and different lives and everything.
Yeah.
So. Well, we will play a couple. I don't think we have time for a story tonight, but we definitely will do that tomorrow night, only because I'm afraid we're going to get drenched and plummeted by wind. But let's play a couple of our goodbye songs. And as we do, and you listen to them, if you can just drop your good night into the comment and where you're saying good night from. I'm so grateful for all of you. And thanks so much for joining us tonight and on YouTube for the first time. Thanks so much, especially Cupid, who was with us the whole night. Oh, thanks, Carrie. Good night, Colorado. Good night, Michigan and Missouri. Good night, Memphis. Good night, Kentucky. Good night, Mimi. Thanks, Samantha. Good night, Illinois. Good night, California. Thank you so much. Until next time on the porch, please be well. Have a great restful evening. Hope you stay dry tonight, wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow.
The night's grown quiet. The stories
Thank you,
are
Gail.
through. But this little porch still waits for you. The coffee's gone cold, The stars are bright. We'll keep
Good
that
night,
swing
Erica.
rocking through the night. So till next time,
Good night,
on the porch,
Pennsylvania.
my friend, where the laughter and the healing never end.
Thanks, Ed.
May your heart stay light, your troubles
Good night, Johnny.
run
We
short.
appreciate you.
We'll see you soon.
Back here on the porch. See y'all tomorrow. Good night for the first time. YouTube.